with AI, we are in serious existential trouble.
So this week there was a hearing in the US House of Representatives, and one of the congressmen present said what we can all clearly see with our eyes, but what politicians are refusing to acknowledge because they've all got their heads buried in the sand. And that is that this AI race that AI companies are forcing upon us has no human winner. America will not win it. China will not win it. The only winner will be the artificial superintelligence that these companies are trying to build. Here's what this congressman had to say.
Yeah, the thing that troubles me is every time we talk about AI, I hear about this race, and it's us against China, or it's us against South Korea, or countries in the EU. At the end of the day, I don't see the United States as the winner. I don't see China as the winner. I see artificial superintelligence as the winner. That's where we're rushing along this course, and at the end of the day, we're creating either us, and it doesn't matter whether the creator of artificial superintelligence is a good guy or a bad guy, or a good gal or a bad gal. That superintelligence itself will be the entity that we have to confront.
So just first of all, I cannot tell you how good it feels to finally hear senior politicians talk about this and reveal what is so obvious to those of us in the AI safety community who have been warning about this for years now. Most journalists and politicians are still framing this AI race, this AI revolution, as something that either America wins or China wins, and whichever country doesn't win will be left behind, and the other country will dominate the coming century. While it is true of most other technologies that it is a battle between countries and whoever gets there first, whoever builds it the best will win, it's not true when you are building agentic, super intelligent entities that are not going to remain under human control. The reason they're not going to remain under human control is precisely because there is not a single AI company, there is not a single AI researcher, there is not a single government, there is not a single person or organization on this planet that has presented any robust plan to make sure that they stay under human control. There is no plan that is held up to any scrutiny that we can rely on here. So these AI companies are just attempting to build a machine god, are attempting to build something that is better than all humans at everything. This is all their explicit goals of every single one of these AI companies. That is what they are telling us that they are trying to do. Most experts think they'll achieve that in the coming decade, and they are just hoping that it will go well, even though they have no plan to do it. If a pilot was trying to load the entirety of humanity onto a plane and he said, yeah, we don't have landing gear yet, but we think we'll figure it out when we're up in the air, no one would get on the plane, and we would call on our governments to shut that pilot down and to stop him from forcing us on that plane. Now, one of the reasons politicians have been so slow to accept this obvious fact and to begin to do something about it is precisely because these AI companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to lobby against any AI regulation and to lie about the risk and to confuse the public and to confuse politicians. As Stephen Lynch will mention in this clip, he has worked on the crypto industry before, and they have used similar tactics to confuse politicians and make sure there has been no regulation.
There's tremendous resources, as you know, being poured into AI. I just hope that the course of regulation does not meet the same fate that the regulation of crypto did, where the crypto industry spent close to $250 million up here on Capitol Hill, and they got the bill they wanted. If that happens with AI, we are in serious existential trouble, not only in this country, but in this world.
It is so clear to see, to me, and I assume to most people, the polling shows that most people can see this, that if you build something that is smarter than we are, and you have no plan to make sure that it is controllable, that it's aligned with your values, then we could all die. That is not some far-fetched outcome of that scenario. It's pretty obvious how that could happen. If they don't care about us and they have some weird misaligned goal, they will be acting in the world to optimize that goal. If they don't care about the well-being of pesky humans, they're not going to do anything to make sure that we are not harmed by its actions. Likewise, if we build literally anything, we have very little concern for how that is going to affect animals, right? Because we don't really care about them that much, unfortunately. And if we replace ourselves with a new super intelligent species and we haven't figured out how to make it care about us, maybe hopefully in a similar way to how we care about dogs, then we're going to be just left at its mercy, and it's not going to do anything to stop its actions from harming us. When it's building new data centers, when it's building solar panels to power those data centers, it will just pave over our farms, leave us without anything. There is no credible plan presented by any of these AI companies for how this is going to go well, for how these disastrous outcomes are not going to materialize. So this is an existential concern, and politicians are starting to see that. Now, Stephen Lynch was raising these concerns to the chair of the Federal Reserve, which is similar to the governor of the Bank of England here in the United Kingdom. And his response to these concerns is just laughable.
This is perhaps the most significant change in our economy in my adult lifetime. I take the new investments in intelligence in some sense to be one where we have to recognize it's a huge opportunity, but it also comes with risks and challenges. These technologies also offer threats when they find their way into adversaries' hands. The infrastructure at the Federal Reserve, the infrastructure at our banks, large and small, they must feel new pressure as people are looking to use these technologies to do harm. So these technologies can be used for good and for harm. Over the long term, I think the US is the winner.
I'm just so sick and tired of this mealy-mouthed bullshit of we have to try and seize the benefits and manage the risks. How do you manage the risk of building something that is smarter than we are that we don't know how to control? That is not a risk that is manageable. That is a risk that you can only manage by stopping it from ever happening. That is something that is technically feasible, but politicians like this are just refusing to deal with this threat seriously. And if they get their way, if they do not really begin to grapple with this, and if we do not change course in a serious way, it is likely that we are all going to die. And he is going to die, I'm going to die, you are going to die if things do not change course. And you'll notice here that when he's talking about the potential risks and potential benefits of this technology, he's only talking about it in the sense of how potential good actors and potential bad actors may use the technology. Now, this is true for narrow AI systems. If you have an AI that is at expert level at cybersecurity, for example, but it is not generally intelligent, then you may have a bad actor that uses that to hack into some critical infrastructure in another country or steal millions of dollars from online banking services, right? These are real concerns, but the trajectory we are on is to build generally intelligent agentic models that are not controllable by humans. So the question then becomes not what humans want to do with it, but what it does itself. And we humans, whether we're Chinese humans, whether we're American humans, whether we're Malawian humans, whether we're Russian humans, are not going to have any say over that, because we don't know how to make these models controllable, how to make them corrigible, how to interpret their outputs and understand why they have arrived at certain decisions. None of these things are known to us because of the way we train them. They are massive neural networks made up of billions and billions of numbers. We don't understand how any of it works. We just make the training process. We don't know why it does any of the things it does. And this is just an insane way to try and build something that is smarter than we are, because we have no assurance whatsoever that it isn't going to escape our control, that it isn't going to do things that we would not like very much, like kill us all, for example. So it's just absurd that we still have politicians that are only talking about it in the sense of whether bad actors use it or whether good actors use it. That's not the most worrying part here. The most worrying part is when good actors no longer have any say over what AI does, nor do bad actors, because it is acting on its own behalf, because it is more intelligent than we are. At that point, we're not going to be able to stop it.